Hey Action Line fans, this is Jason with AMD. Check this out.
UBT's Action Line Podcast is a production of UBT Media. Welcome to United by Trucks Action Line Podcast. I'm your host, Robbie Purser. In this podcast, we dive deep with those who share a love for classic trucks, like to have some good old-fashioned automotive fun telling stories, truths, and maybe even a few exaggerated tales. Brought to you by Sweet Patina and Auto Metal Direct, this is our place to lay it all on the table and learn what happens when our guests mix fuel, spark, and air. Folks, if we got a show for you today, we've got Stephen Dorrick, LOJ Conversions creator, in the studio. You may remember Stephen from our budget six-speed video over on the United by Trucks YouTube channel. Stephen is an innovator, accomplished autocross champion, and a man who is into the details. Stick around to the end where we'll dive into your questions for Stephen on all things budget six-speed for your performance truck application. As a reminder, our main interview show is brought to you by Sweet Patina. It lands every other Monday, but this month you're getting 3 episodes of the main show, and the Off the Rail series, our new series brought to you by Tenworks Fabrication, will be monthly right here on the new Action Line podcast channel. So be sure to subscribe, follow, leave a review or comment, and tell a friend. And hey, if you're looking for patina care products like patina sauce or century polish or happy ending quick detailer, or even professional quality paint products like matte clear or satin black acrylic urethane, they have it in a rattle can, or even some killer automotive merch, check out sweetpatina.com and use the code UBT5 for a discount at checkout. And be sure to stick around for the Action Line Anatomy segment fueled by Auto Metal Direct. In this segment, we dive deep on 67 to 72 Action Line GM truck pickups, square bodies, and even other GM truck pickups, and get into the intricacies of the details in that segment. So be sure to stick around because we might just learn a thing or two. Now, let's get into it. Stephen Dorrick.
Yep.
Thank you for being here.
Robbie, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the conversation today. I think a lot of my viewers on UBT are probably really interested in hearing from you again. When we got together at Level 7 to talk about the transmission and the crate motor that we're going to be putting in this OBS, it actually sparked quite a few questions and a lot of interest about how we're going to make all this happen.
Definitely. We've probably fielded, I say we, but Blaine has probably fielded hundreds of phone calls or emails from viewers of yours with interest in the transmission. So it's really cool how the community responded to it.
Very cool. We should also note that Blaine is in the room with us, so big shout out to Blaine from LOJ. If you're talking to somebody at LOJ and it's not Steven, you're definitely talking to Blaine.
Yeah, it's a 2-man operation, so you're either getting him or me.
Very cool. Well, I'm really excited to have you back just for the fact that that project kind of stalled here in our shop. So we've had a move going on. We've had all sorts of things happening personally and professionally that has stopped us from getting going on that build. But I wanted to take the opportunity today to really pick your brain a little bit more. We've got some viewer questions that we'll get to toward the end of this talk, but really talk a little bit about who you are, how LOJ got started. I want to talk about your racing career. I think folks would be really interested to know that. So we talked about a lot of meat around the transmission and the swap in that video, and I think there's just a lot more that we could probably uncover. And so I want to take the time today to do that. So,
sure. Sounds great.
Before we jump into any of the history thing on you, can you just kind of give us a bit of a refresher on LOJ Conversions and how all that got started?
Sure. So LOJ Conversions started in December of 2012. I started my career out of college as an engineer working for the Department of Defense. I actually designed tools for fixing fighter jets. And in that job, a coworker of mine also owned his own business in the LS swap world, doing wiring harness stuff. And I would show up to work, sometimes driving these oddball vehicles that I had built. I did like a DT360 swapped Ford F550. I had a RB26 and a 300ZX, Nissan V8 swapped in a Nissan 300ZX, and he just thought the stuff I was building was cool. And he said, at any point would you decide to, sell the things that you're making rather than just building one-off cool things. Because, you know, he had started his own business. He's like, oh, it's great. You know, you work your job and you have a business too, and it's super easy. You know, it's not super easy for anybody who's thinking about doing it, but, you know, it makes it sound easy. So I knew that at that time, so we're talking 2012, one of the biggest, I guess, desires in the LS swap community was affordable manual transmission options to get behind an LS. And you got to remember, we're going back 13 years at this point. So a T56 was a relatively new and not easy to find thing at that time. And you'd pay a premium for a T56, you know, 2 weeks before race wars, they command a lot of money.
Yeah.
But, you know, there were probably $2,500, $3,000 at that time for a used T56, and a new one was even more than that. So I knew from my background in the Nissan world, because I grew up on import stuff, that the 300ZX transmission, and I'm talking 1990 to 96 generation, it shares its architecture with the Skyline GTR overseas. And I'm sure people know the history and lore around the Skyline GTR,
Sure.
all-wheel drive, twin turbo, big power, go fast. They're strong is really what it comes down to. The Z was just a two-wheel drive version of the all-wheel drive transmission in the GTRs. So I was like, you know what, I can make an adapter to bolt that transmission to an LS and give people an affordable option, because you could, at that time, buy 300ZX transmissions for $500. So I'm like, if you can make an adapter for $900 to $1,000, again, $12, and get a transmission for $500, you're coming in less than half the price of a T56. And if you blow it up, another transmission is just $500, you know, not thousands. So that's, you know, a single overdrive 5-speed, not a double overdrive 6-speed, but it's still, you know, you make some concessions for saving that kind of money. And that was the first thing I designed. And I started a little website trying to sell them, and I did start selling some. Coincidentally, at that time, my wife had a 93 300ZX convertible automatic. She always wanted a convertible. I bought her one to drive, and I remember we had just had our first child, and I had to take her car to Target to get diapers. And I went inside, came back out, got in the car, went to start it, and it hydrolocked because notorious Nissan problem, fuel injector hung wide open and flooded the cylinder with fuel. It hydrolocked and bent a rod.
I actually just had that exact same thing happen to a friend on an LS.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
160.
Wow.
And that's actually the first time I'd heard of that in sort
That's
of
a rare
modern injector type world.
That's a rare thing for modern top feed injectors, but the old side feed injectors that were on Nissans were notorious, especially with ethanol and fuels and whatever. Unimportant, but I was like, well, I already have an adapter for a 300ZX transmission, and this car needs an engine. Should we take the next step with LOJ and just make a whole kit to put an LS in this car? 300ZXs, the Z32 generation from 90 to 96, were a very cool car. I think they're a stylish car. I think they perform very well. I think they're a comfortable, fun car to drive, but the factory engines in them were very difficult to work on. It was a cramped engine bay, and especially the twin turbo versions were a bit of a maintenance nightmare. So I thought it was a good candidate for a swap.
Sure.
So we decided to design an entire swap kit, and honestly, it took off. And I remember the early days of LOJ welding together motor mounts that I had, you know, the pieces water jet from a local guy, spray painting them in my garage, boxing. Like, this is real grassroots how, you know, a business starts, and it has just continually grown over the years. You know, everything that LOJ produces, any LOJ labeled product that you would buy is designed, manufactured, and, you know, produced in the U.S., either by Blaine and I ourselves or by suppliers in the U.S. that make the parts for us.
Very cool.
You know, I stand behind U.S. made products. I want to employ U.S. citizens making our products. Even the materials, you know, we make sure that our suppliers buy materials wherever possible from like U.S. mills or whatever, the metals that we use. It's tough in a global economy like we do to literally say everything is 100% American made. I'm sure the bolts in our kits came from overseas possibly,
right.
But, you know, to the best of my ability, I try to do everything domestically. And like I said, the business has just grown over the years. So at the time, there was nobody else that made kits for 300ZXs. We were the only place that did. And I did that intentionally as well, because if you're going to start a new company and you want people to buy your product, if you're literally the only option,
Right.
they have to give you a try, even if you're a relative unknown.
Yep.
And I used basically being the only name in the game for that platform, for that kit, to build the reputation of the company. I stand behind excellent customer service, high quality products. We stand behind our products. And once that reputation was built, we started branching out into other platforms.
So what vehicles what's your market looking like currently?
The biggest sellers for us are still the Z32 300ZX and the 350Zs or Infiniti G35s, which are basically sister platforms. The kit is the same for both of those two cars. We've done kits for the 370Zs and the G37s. They're a bit newer, more expensive still. Less people are swapping them, although we do sell those products. We branched out into Nissan trucks with Frontiers, Xteras, Pathfinders. That's another ironic story of what the kit was originally intended to be in my mind to what it became.
Sure.
And actually, if you go on our website now, the website will direct you in two different directions when you're looking for those products, because originally I wanted to give an inexpensive option for off-road guys to get more torque into these vehicles for off-road. So I tried to I successfully adapted to the factory manual transmission, kept the stock transmission in the stock location, so you're not changing drive shafts or any shift linkage or anything like that, and then just made a trans adapter, oil pan, and motor mounts for putting an LS in. The factory truck exhaust manifolds fit, the factory truck intake manifold fits. You can basically buy a truck LS and bolt it in, and it's really easy.
And this is in that Frontier platform.
The Frontier Xterra platform.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But what ended up happening was, you said we wanted to talk a little bit about racing.
Well, I want to specifically hear like how you ended up getting into Chevy trucks and other types of trucks, even outside of sort of the Nissan world, because I know there is some history there as well.
Yeah, most of my experience is in import platforms. When I started, I was a Honda kid in 1997, 98. Honda Civics.
All my friends were in high school.
Yeah,
in that same time frame. I was the only guy driving a mini truck. All my buddies had Hondas.
So I was the Honda guy, and then I got out of Hondas into 240 SXs in college, and that's where I gave up front-wheel drive, went to rear-wheel drive, and that's one of the reasons why most of the kits we make, or almost all the kits we make, are for Nissans and Infinitis, because they're one of the few import companies that produce rear-wheel drive cars.
Yeah.
Everything Infiniti is rear-wheel drive, and then Nissan has some rear-wheel drive sports cars too, so there's a lot of options for performance type builds, whereas everything Honda's front wheel drive except for the S2000 or the NSX. And while I would like to swap an NSX just to really piss off the world,
that'd be so cool.
It would be cool.
It would be so cool.
An LT4 with a re-sleeved LT4 to be a 427 and a transverse mounted NSX application would be cool. But
that sounds like something I can get behind.
I could too if somebody else finances it for me right now, because NSXs are out of sight and price.
Still very expensive.
Very expensive. Yeah. But I've messed with all sorts of different vehicles. I honestly, I've never been a truck guy, which is what's ironic. I've always been a sports car guy. I got into racing almost accidentally.
Yeah.
Through
in a truck
of all things. Yeah. So I rewind a little bit. After college, graduated, got a job, actually bought a Mitsubishi Evo in 03 new. Got into autocrossing in that car. Did pretty well at local events, but never really competed on any level other than just local events, and really just went when I had time for fun.
Yep.
Did that for years. Did that in some 300ZXs, other cars that I owned, but again, never really competed. And then just life happens, and once LOJ started, I wanted to build something for bringing to an event like LS Fest, to put in my booth that would be really wild and different and draw in the crowd to make awareness of what we do.
Yep.
So I decided, I had a 2005 Nissan Frontier, basically parts runner truck. I have pictures of that truck with a DT360 diesel in the back that I was taking to the junkyard to scrap. It was a get around truck. Yeah. And I thought someday I'd do something with it, but
you were just using it.
Just using it as a truck.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
It was functional. And then we decided to LS swap it. And then I really wanted to, at that time, Ken Block's Huna truck, was that what it was called?
Yep.
Whatever it was popular. I was like, you know what, I can build something all-wheel drive. Not like that. I mean, that was huge dollar, crazy,
Totally.
high-end build, but something cool.
Inspired by that,
Inspired by it, yeah. So I put an LS in the Frontier. We twin turboed it. I made it all-wheel drive. I designed a transfer case adapter for putting a Trailblazer SS transfer case behind a T56 TR6060. Basically, take a TR6060 or a T56 out of whatever it came out of, put a Corvette main shaft in it and a Corvette tail housing, because Corvettes are transaxle vehicles,
Right.
so the diff is bolted right to the trans. By putting the Corvette back half on the front half of a normal trans, it gave me a flat surface to bolt an adapter to.
Oh.
And then the Corvette had the same spline count as the Trailblazer transfer case, so I didn't need any kind of splined adapter. That just slid on, and I just needed to make the bolting pieces, the flanges, bolt together, and that was the first adapter I made. I made one for myself. I made one for Jeremy Formato, which was a YouTuber back in the day, had a Faster Promise channel. He did some
Yeah.
stuff with Cletus back in the day, and that's what I put in the truck. And I did that. We twin turboed it. It had like stock Nissan. Go ahead.
And just to be clear, what was the truck? What is the truck?
2005 Nissan Frontier.
Yep.
Extended cab, just a normal. You would see them anywhere.
Run-of-the-mill Frontier.
Yeah, they made them from 05 until 2021. I mean, there's a long production run on those trucks.
Was this the VQ40
Yep.
V6
Yep.
manual option truck?
It was a VQ40 automatic rear-wheel drive truck when
Okay.
it started.
All right.
But we did the conversion in it, did some custom fabrication. I put like stock Nismo Nissan Juke seats in it. Like they're like factory Recaros. Brakes off of a Nissan Titan because they were bigger than Frontier, but not like really performance. But
Yeah.
the truck, again, it was supposed to look cool, and that was all it was built to do. And it did look cool. Like it drew a ton of attention at LS Fest. And in LS Fest of 2021, I believe it was 21. I'm looking at Blaine right now. He's shaking his head. I think it was. Whatever it was.
Somewhere in that
time frame. Yeah. I brought it to LS Fest, and I had, like I said, at that time, LOJ was basically a 1.5 man operation. It was me, and I had one guy helping me part-time. But I had a bunch of friends come with me to that event, and because of that, I knew that I'd have somebody to sit in my booth, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to register the truck to autocross. I haven't autocrossed in years. Yeah. Let's try to have some fun at this show. So that's what I did, and I autocrossed it, and it was not fast. Like, it was solidly mediocre, but it looked cool, made cool sounds. Yeah. People were staring at it. You know,
I was going to say probably served the business purpose.
It did, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we finish up the LS Fest event. If anybody's ever been to LS Fest East, it is, there's 20, 30,000 people at these shows. It's a mess, like chaos. End of the show, I'm packing up my booth, packing the truck up in the trailer, get on the road to head home, and don't really think anything of it. A few weeks later, now LS Fest is in September, so probably first week of October, maybe last week of September, my phone rings, and the woman on the other end, she's like, "Is this Steven with the Nissan Frontier?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "My name's Carrie from FM3 Marketing." I said, "Okay." She's like, "Did you know you won the Spirit of the Event Award at LS Fest?"
Oh, nice.
And I was like, "What's the Spirit of the Event Award?" And she said, "Well, FM3 Marketing, that run all the LS Fest events, also run all the Optima Ultimate Streetcar events. And because of that, they give out a Spirit of the Event Award at all the Fest events, and that earns you an invite to race at the Optima Ultimate Streetcar Invitational at the SEMA show in Vegas." And I'm like, "That sounds really cool."
That
She's
sounds
like,
very enticing.
So you want to go? And I'm like, "When do you need to know?" I live in New Jersey. Vegas is Vegas, and it's October at this point, and SEMA is in November.
Right. So this is all happening fast.
Very fast.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Can I at least call my wife to ask?" She's like, "You can, but I need to know today." So I called my wife. Because I guess they got to fill their quota of 100 cars for the show, and if I can't make it, they got to find somebody else.
Sure.
So I called my wife. She's like, "This is a huge opportunity. We got to figure out how to make it happen." I mean, I literally went out and bought an F-350 just to tow my truck to Vegas because I didn't even have a vehicle. Now, my accountant was like, "You need to buy something this year, business things." And I wanted a new truck anyway, so don't take it as like it was like a frivolous. It had been on my mind, but it was the catalyst to make that happen.
Totally.
Bought a new truck. I didn't have vacation time at work. I had to hire somebody to drive the brand new truck I just bought to Vegas with my race truck in the back, and I flew out there to run. And I ran Ultimate Streetcar Invitational, and it was again, a solidly mediocre performance. But that was the first time in my life that I'd ever been on a racetrack instead of just an autocross. I'd done drag racing, I had done some autocross, but that was the first time on a racetrack. And I can tell you that even at that time, being 37, 38 years old, or 40 years old, I don't even know how old I was. 20, I was 40.
Yeah.
That was a formative moment in my life. I was
Of
like,
course.
I need to do more of this.
Yeah.
So we came back from the OUSCI and spent that winter doing brake upgrades, stickier tires, put some racing harnesses in the truck, a fire suppression system, some stuff to actually like make it more functional on a racetrack.
And to be a little safer.
A little safer, yeah. No power adder. I mean, it made power. It was a twin turbo S. They make power, but
gobs of
yeah.
power.
I mean, the truck's 5,000 pounds too, so like you got to take that into consideration. It's fast, but it's not insane because of how heavy it was. But I then ran the Ultimate Street Car Challenge into 2022 competitively.
Mm-hmm.
My first event was at Charlotte. I ran against Jesse there.
Yeah.
First time I met Jesse. My first track outing, the concentric slave cylinder in my transmission, the clutch hose rubbed on the pressure plate and broke, and I lost the clutch. And Jesse loaned me a Milwaukee angle grinder to cut a hole in the bell housing, because with a TR6060, it's integrated. It's not a separate piece. To get in there and get the hose out, run up to like this is Charlotte, so there's speed shops close by.
Totally.
Get a new hose made, put it all back together. I finished the event. I don't win, but what was funny
That's what
is,
it's all about, though.
Yeah, I had just finished the event, having fun.
About.
Absolutely. And I had met a driving instructor there who, I want to say my first lapping session, I was 7 or 8 seconds a lap behind Jesse. And then I went out for the second session with a coach in with me, and I closed that gap to 1 second behind Jesse. And that was, Jesse was like, maybe I shouldn't have helped this guy fix his truck. I mean, I say that jokingly. Jesse and I have become friends now. And that was kind of my introduction to like pro touring trucks. Because I didn't really know it was a thing. You know, import guys.
Coming from the import side,
Right. It's import guys they're drifters or time attack drivers. Trucks kind of get over, or they're mini truckers, you know, but there's no performance road course trucks.
Right.
And
it's a very small group of trucks, and it's certainly grown larger with the advent of pro touring trucks, shootout and other events like that. And I think there's becoming more. The aftermarket is catering a lot more to that from a chassis perspective, and even folks like you, folks like LOJ, trying to get a unique transmission into a modern or into a unique transmission into a classic truck.
Absolutely.
I think that's a really cool thing. But yeah, especially at that point, even just 3-4 years ago, I mean, it was a very different environment.
I mean, I kind of fell into it, right? Like none of this was planned. It was absolutely God putting things in life that like have shaped the path of my life for the last 4 years. And, Charlotte was the first event. I went out to Road America, my second event, and Jesse broke at Road America, so I ended up winning. I am humble enough to say that if Jesse's truck didn't break, he would have beat me at that event.
And that would have been yellow truck?
Yellow truck.
That truck right there on the wall.
Yeah. So had Jesse not broken, he would have beaten me from points, but because he didn't, I won. So by winning there, I got another invite back to the Invitational.
I got to pause here.
Sure.
Your second race in 2022 was at Road America.
Was at Road America.
What kind of experience, like what were you feeling like even leading up to that event? I mean, I've never even been to Road America, but I know it is something to be admired and
Road
appreciated.
America is my happy place. There is no other track that I've been to like that. It's not just the track, but it's the entire facility. It's groomed like a high-end golf course. Like the facilities are nice. It's a great place to view racing at. It's also really scary flying down the front straight at 150 plus and having your brakes fail and go off in turn one into the gravel like I did at that event. Yeah.
I'm sure that was terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, I remember then sitting in the pits, deflating all 4 tires, picking the gravel out of the beads, reinflating the tires, vacuuming dirt out of the truck just to make it out for my next session.
Wow.
Jimmy Day said this year, Jimmy Day runs the Optima events at FM3, he's like, I've never seen someone make winning look so hard. And Jimmy and I have become friendly too. And it was, jokingly, but every event I've ever been to, it's been a battle because I'm racing a platform that nobody's ever done anything with, and I'm finding all the weaknesses, whatever.
But I do think there's something to be admired about that, though. You're taking and doing something with a vehicle and maybe even a set of components that needs some fleshing out.
Absolutely.
You have to work it out in motion.
Yep.
It's time for the Action Line Anatomy segment brought to you by Auto Metal Direct. I am stoked for this one. This is the 67 to 72 SPID, also known as Service Parts Identification Label Breakdown. This is a really important topic about these trucks that once I learned, and I know I've said this in some other segments of this episode or of this segment as well, but once I learned about the SPID label and what information it can tell you, it totally changed my game. This relates to 67 to 72 trucks, GM trucks, but it also relates to square bodies as well. You've probably run across a service parts identification label in your glove box or on the inner fender under the hood if you're a square body guy or gal. These labels hold the absolute magic recipe when it comes to options for the truck. Information like the VIN number, model number, RPO codes, wheelbase, and more can be found on these labels, which is what makes them so important. While we haven't really dived into model numbers or RPO codes yet, in this segment, we've taken an in-depth look at deciphering VIN numbers in a previous episode, so I'll leave the link down in the description so you can go check that one out. And since we're bringing these topics to you every week or every episode, I thought we might need to pause and look at where all of this great info can be found. And it's right on the inside of your 67 to 72 GM truck glove box or the inner fender of your square body truck. Now, before we go any farther, I have had terrible luck finding them consistently on the 67 to 72 GMC trucks. I've owned a couple and currently own two, and neither of them have a SPID label in the glove box. It's super frustrating. However, what isn't super frustrating is when you do find one and it has the information such as the paint code. In my case, in the case of my 68 Teddy, this is where it tells me that it has 503 light green paint, or that it had code P01 full wheel covers, or 115-inch wheelbase, which is a short wheelbase instead of the 127-inch long wheelbase, or A11 tinted glass, or LS9 350 small block. All these kinds of options and more can be determined from the SPID label, and hence makes them a literal treasure trove of options for your truck if yours is still intact. One cool thing about the aftermarket as it relates to SPIDs, they can be recreated. This SPID label can be recreated. Our buddy Phil Can of Can's Customs can even help you make a reproduction label for your glove box to include factory options, custom options, or a mix of both. They look really factory appearing, and it is another great way to personalize your truck. Just check out 4-Door Phil, and that's Phil with 2 L's, 4-Door Phil, 2 L's, .myshopify.com to pick yours up. As with a lot of topics we discuss during the Action Line Anatomy segment, the SPID is a great way to tell what options your truck was born with and what options a previous owner might have changed, or in all reality, in the case of the glove box lid being swapped, if you're simply looking at a SPID from another truck. As always, we have to thank our friends over at AMD for supporting this podcast, and more specifically, helping us out with the Action Line Anatomy segment. If you're looking for period correct parts for your classic truck, try out our friends over at Auto Metal Direct. While they have all your sheet metal needs covered for your classic truck, they are more than metal. Hit up autometaldirect.com for all of your classic truck needs. And hey, don't forget about our Hot Rod Square Body giveaway this Thursday, May 15th at 11:59 p.m. is the last day and time that you can enter to win our Hot Rod Square Body. All the details and official rules are over at unitedbytrucks.com/giveaway. Right now, every $5 you spend equals 5 entries. So every $5 spent on UBT merch or our UBT cam kits equals 5 entries on unitedbytrucks.com to win this truck. As always, no purchase necessary, lower 48 residents only. Go hit those official rules over at unitedbytrucks.com/giveaway. Now, back to the interview.
that year, so I won Road America, but like I said, had Jesse not broken, he would have won, but breaking's part of racing, whatever. I got my first trophy at Road America. Did beat the other trucks that were there, so I mean, still something to be said about that. And then the last event that year was VIR, and Jesse was ahead of me in the Drivers' Championship by 2 points. So I had to beat him by 3 points to win the year championship. And that VIR event was the event where Jesse and I became friends. Because I've met a lot of different competitors through that series, and Jesse was one of those guys, just like at Charlotte. If I was struggling with my truck, he was coming over to help me try to fix it. It doesn't matter that we're racing against each other. And the same thing with him. He was struggling with dry sump oil pump issues, and we were trying to help him get his stuff sorted. If I want to win, I want to win on the track. I don't want to win because somebody broke. And him and I battled that whole weekend, and I ended up winning the championship. I needed to beat him by 3 points.
And
I beat him by 4.
Very cool.
I won the national championship that year, my rookie season, by 2 points. Went back to SEMA, lost in SEMA that year, didn't win the Invitational. Then 2023, ran the season, won the championship again, went back to SEMA, won the Invitational at SEMA in 2023. 2024, ran the series again, won the championship again in 2024. But at VIR in 2024, even though I won the race, I wrecked the truck at VIR, so I couldn't go to the Invitational in 2024. And the truck is now sitting at home, blown apart, waiting to be put back together.
Wow!
So
what a really cool progression of events that has really happened in such a short amount of time. I think when we were even talking last year, all that happened in like 3 years. So now we're sitting here, all this has happened in 4 years, really. Just a quick reminder to everybody at home, and even to myself. You did all this in what vehicle? What truck was it? Like what setup was it?
So that the truck, its setup has evolved a little bit, but again, it's an 05 Nissan Frontier, all-wheel drive twin turbo LS, 4-wheel independent suspension, 20 by 12 tires with 345 tires square on it, 16-inch Willwood brakes. Like it's
coming to its own.
Yeah, it has. I mean, this last season I converted from the T56 to a sequential. It's still a T56 transmission case, but PPG out of Australia makes a gear set to convert it to a sequential, because Tick Performance came on board to sponsor me, and they got tired of me breaking T56 transmissions. They're like, you need to put something better in this. So they helped me out with that trans, and that made a huge difference in stopping breaking things. But
and I want to mention here before, and you've got the shirt on, so it just kept reminding me. But if you're interested in what this truck looks like, interested to see and learn more about Steven and his journey with this truck, you can go to Instagram, That Crazy Frontier. If you're watching on video, it's right here on his shirt. But it is, as someone, I grew up around classic trucks. That's what I've been interested in my whole life. Just following your journy in a truck that is not something that would normally pique my interest has been really cool. Like it is, I
appreciate that.
It is something that it's inspiring. And as someone who wants to learn how to drive, what you've been able to do in a short amount of time in your driving career has just been so fun to watch. So I think it's just so cool.
I appreciate that. I've been hashtagging the truck accidentally awesome for a long time because I had no idea it would be what it was. And I've always had this debate with my friends in the racing community that I've made. It's like, did I build a really awesome truck and I'm a mediocre driver and it works? Did I build a mediocre truck and I'm an awesome driver? Did I build an awesome truck and you know what? Like, why is this success happening? I don't know. It's been a fight the whole way, and I haven't won every race I went to, but I've won most of them, and it's humbling to me.
Yeah.
I don't go to these races to win. I'm not a competitive person by nature. I'm going there to have fun. I'm going there to like make new friends. The friends I made in the community has been awesome. And there are some guys that they are like dead competitive and they don't even want to associate with me. It's like I'm the enemy. To me, it's like, listen, we're grassroots racing here. Like at the end of the day, I spent way more money to get here than I'm getting out of it racing, and I'm here to have fun. And if I break and one of my friends wins, or they just beat me flat out, I'm happy for them. Like it's just not what it's about to me, and it's not a dig on people who that is what it's about to them. But I guess for me, like I just always try to rein myself in and be like, this is something I'm here for fun. I've been able to bring my family out to these events
Right.
and expose my kids to this side of me that they've never really seen before.
And challenge yourself.
Yeah.
Challenge yourself in doing something that you don't have a ton of history in, a ton of experience with,
Absolutely.
right?
And over the last year, I think the coolest thing is that we've, at LOJ, I've done LS swap kits for a while, but last year we actually released a drop kit for the same generation Nissan Frontier that I race now, and we've been selling drop kits now. We're built multiple trucks. We did another Frontier with a D-stroked LS, a 5.5 liter with a Magnuson supercharger on it, rear-wheel drive.
Oh, cool.
It's a lot lighter than my truck because it's rear-wheel drive. It's not wide body, and that guy's been racing that with working the kinks out and figuring stuff out, but having a lot of fun. Blaine's actually just finishing up his Frontier, which is an LS3, big cam, two-wheel drive, really clean.
I don't think it had the LS3 when I saw it. No.
You won't even recognize the truck anymore.
The red extended cab, it was
Yep.
lowered, had some wheels on it.
So it's like even 2 inches lower than that now, and with custom drop spindles I designed and a C-notch kit on the frame and LS3, and you'll see it. If you don't see it at Pro Touring Truck Shootout, you'll see it at an Optima event shortly after that. We're trying to get it back together right now, and I know he's like, stop talking about it. I just want to reveal it.
Well, you've had a really exciting racing career, and even since you've, left college and started your engineering career working with the Department of Defense and starting this company, LOJ. But I kind of want to go back a little bit farther in your history than that. I want to know, were you into cars as a kid? I mean, I know we talked a little bit about the Honda scene and things like that, but what, was your dad into them? Was family member? Where's that genesis of you being into automotive?
I think there's a Dilbert clip where the mom takes the son to the doctor, and one of the things in the doctor's office isn't working, and she's worried about her son. And while she's talking to the doctor, the son fixes the machine that's not working, and the doctor's like, "Oh no," and she's like, "Oh, what is it?" And he's like, "He has the knack, and he'll be socially awkward, and he'll be an engineer." Type was like the joke. I'm butchering it because I'm an engineer and I'm not a comedian, but that's me. I was never into cars, to answer your question. I thought they were cool, but my dad likes cars, but wasn't like a gearhead, didn't have a hot rod type thing. And my grandfather was a mechanic, so taught my dad how to work on stuff. And my dad taught me how to do oil changes and all that. But it wasn't until it was freshman year in college. So I had just done oil changes and brakes and stuff on my Honda that I had in high school.
Yeah.
And
probably did that more as a cost-saving measure. Your dad didn't want you to go spend the money on having it done.
Exactly.
My dad did the same to me.
Yep.
Which I think is a reasonable thing.
I have vivid memories of, putting oil in my car and then realizing I was standing in a puddle of oil because I forgot to put the drain plug back in.
Yep.
The things you learn as a kid.
That's right.
I haven't forgotten since, but, we all make mistakes. But I remember, I don't know if it was online. It must have been on Honda forums back in the day that I heard about motor swaps. And my dad has this ability to find deals on things that are just insane. You can't pass them up, find rare things cheap, whatever. It's how God's blessed him through his life.
Sure.
Because he's been able, my dad's worked one job his whole career, made a modest living, provided for us, loved us, did everything he could for us. And I think through that, God kind of blessed him through finding these kind of deals through his life. And my dad told me one day that he found a 92 Honda Civic hatchback with a blown motor, and it was $200, which...
Wow.
Yeah, you don't...
Good luck finding that today.
It's 1998, 1999 when this happens. So we bought this Honda Civic hatchback with a blown motor for $200, and I learned on the forums that an Integra motor would bolt right in. Yeah. So I begged an uncle of mine at that time to loan me some money to go buy a B18 motor to swap in it, and he did. And I worked to pay him back, and I put that motor in that car, and the second day I drove that car, I totaled it in an accident, hit a F450 head on, because I went too fast around the turn and understeered into oncoming traffic and hit this truck. It was first day of spring break, my freshman year in college. Broke my leg in 3 places. Didn't walk for 9 months. That's when I learned that if you're going to put more power in a car, you need to put sticky tires and better brakes on it.
Yeah.
And every vehicle I've owned since then gets brakes and tires before I touch the engine.
Love it.
Every car.
I do not love that you had the accident. I love that you learned
a
there's
very
something
important
that came
lesson.
out of that.
And I have expressed that to every person I've interacted with about cars. Like, you want to make more power? That's great. The rest of the car needs to support that.
Yeah.
My engineering degree is in mechanical engineering. I have a master's degree in systems engineering now. Like, I very much look at a vehicle as a system as a whole. So when I develop our swap kits, I look at it as a whole, that everything works together, and it's kind of trial by fire has taught me that a little bit. So that Honda that I swapped that motor in, before doing that engine swap, I had only ever done oil changes.
Yeah.
So like, my
You
buddies
went
and I
from
just
elementary to full on.
We just went right into it, and I was kind of learned by doing. And I did that swap. Once I wrecked that car, obviously, actually was able to buy back the Civic I had before that to continue driving through college. And then I built a Nissan 240SX, which is a rear-wheel drive little sports car that they had. Another one, my dad found that one. Had an input shaft bearing making noise in the transmission. We paid $400 for that car.
Wow.
In 2000, whatever it was. I shipped a Nissan SR20, which is a 4-cylinder turbo motor that came in that car stock overseas, but not in the U.S. Shipped a motor over from Australia. It bolts right into the car, so I didn't have to fabricate anything, but I had to figure out all the wiring myself. And
you're totally like taking me back to what all my friends wanted to do back then. They were trying to do that unique thing. Well, this is what they're doing in the JDM market. This is what, we want to try to do that here.
Yep.
Taking a motor, a turbo, a factory motor that's not even offered in the U.S. and then bringing it here and putting it in,
and
your vehicle is so rad.
It is. It seems like a great idea too, until you blow the turbo gasket on the manifold and realize you can't get one.
Yeah.
And, you learn some things. I still had fun with the car. I learned a lot with that car, but I fell into the automotive thing. It wasn't like something I grew up with, I guess, to answer your question.
Yeah, that is so cool. I have a lot of friends, totally off topic, but kind of equates, that are musicians, and some of them are very successful musicians. And I have been playing guitar since I was 8 years old. That's a 60s replica Jazz Master behind your head. I like to think I can play a guitar. All my successful friends who play musicians started in college. They started playing guitar in college. So it's just one of those things that I think that, I really don't even know how it happens, but sometimes it happens for those who start, a little later in life on their hobby or their passion.
I mean, there's one thing that I believe that with enough drive, determination, and practice, anybody can do anything.
Yes.
But I also believe that some people innately are born with some talents that predispose them to be good at things that requires less effort. So, I don't try to discourage my kids from doing anything they want to do. I try to expose them to lots of different things. But if they don't fall in and knack for it and love it, it's like, okay, then don't do that.
There's plenty of other things to be into.
My daughter played piano for a little bit, and she didn't love it, so you don't have to play piano, sweetheart. Find something else that you love, and she loves art now, and that's what she's doing. So,
I love it.
I think that applies in almost anything in life, so.
I think you're exactly right. Well, now I want to fast forward.
Okay.
I got to know you through Jesse. I got to know about you through Jesse. We ended up partnering on this adapter kit and transmission for my LS crate motor that's going into my OBS. How did you start inching your toe into sort of the classic truck world, into the more, American made, I guess we'll call it American made truck, because you have such a strong history in the import world, even as it relates to trucks. How did that begin to happen?
Well, essentially, I started looking at the same question we can go all the way back to our first conversation, the cheaper transmission options for LSs, for manuals.
Yep.
Now we're at a point where finding an original F-body T56 is difficult because they're all blown up or gone, because we're fast forward 13 years later now, right? So they were expensive 13 years ago. Now they're rare. Yeah, you can go buy a brand new T56 Magnum if you want a manual but it's
very
big,
expensive.
it's very expensive.
Yep.
So for the classic trucks and muscle cars, the hip transmission, if it's the right way to say it, that a lot of guys want to run is what they call a Nissan CD09.
Yep.
If you're in the car community, I'm sure you've heard that term, at least in passing, guys talking about a CD09 transmission. That is the manual transmission that came in Nissan 350Zs from 03 to 06. Very strong transmission, 6-speed manual, single overdrive. The problem with that transmission for a swap into like a muscle car or a classic truck is shifter placement. The 350Z transmission, the shifter is remote located. It hangs off the back of the trans real far, much like a TR6060 out of a 5th-gen Camaro. Same reason that not great for a swap is why the CD09 is not great for a swap. Right. Also, the CD09 has a small bell housing, which limits clutch options, and you end up with a really stiff pedal because the clutch diameter is small. So if you want a clutch that holds a lot of power, the pressure plate has to be stiffer, and it's not great for driving. Well, the Frontier transmission, as I learned later, architecturally is the same as a CD09, but the case is different. So instead of having a remote mounted shifter, it's top mounted in the trans, and the bell housing's bigger because it came in a truck and had a larger diameter clutch stock. So I said, you know what, maybe that's a great option for reaching a new market,
sure.
Being muscle car guys and classic trucks or whatever you want to put it in.
Yeah, really, if it'll bolt to an LS,
right,
or an L, and these will bolt to an LT as well?
LS, LT. We have adapters for that transmission for LS, LT, modular motor, Godzilla, Coyote, Hemi. You can put that trans behind any of those.
And even small block Chevy.
Yes.
Yeah, on a special case basis. I mean, it's something you would have to.
So if you have a small block Chevy that's internally balanced, I can make a flywheel for you to make that work. It would be special order. We can do that, though, and we have done that. But it has to be an internally balanced engine, not a really old small block with external balance, because I can't make the flywheel the right weight for whatever your engine is.
Yeah,
so
we digress.
Yeah. And the whole, it wasn't until years through my car career that I even knew that there was motors that were externally balanced. I just thought everything was internally balanced growing up in the import world because they all were.
Yep.
But we digress. So I said, you know what, another cheap transmission option, because who wants a transmission out of a 2005 to 21 Nissan Frontier, especially a manual? Not many people. So they were inexpensive. So I decided to make an adapter for them. It facilitated the LS swap kit for the Frontiers and Xteras because it's the same trans in both. But then it also, kind of pivoted as an option for guys like yourself that are looking for a different transmission option. I think I had mentioned in the previous video last year with Jesse as well that because it's a single overdrive with a really deep first gear, it works well with the gear ratios and rear diffs that are typically in classic cars and muscle cars as well. So, you don't have to re-gear your diff to work with the double overdrive T56. It'll kind of work with factory gearing. It's an option.
Yep. And they're strong, right?
They are strong. I would confidently put 700 plus horsepower through one of these. I think stock T56 Magnum power is about what a healthy one of these transmissions will take. Now, if it's got 250,000 miles on it,
proceed
it's
with
warm,
caution.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can still buy a brand new one of these transmissions, at least in March of 2025, for like $2,200 from Nissan.
I actually looked it up earlier today, and just to be clear, it's an EA200 is this transmission we're talking about. So akin to the CD09, what everybody calls the CD09, but bigger bell housing, top
mounted shifter.
Top mounted shifter. So a couple of key differences. The gear ratio, or the ratio in the gears in the what am I trying to say here? The gears inside the trans.
Yes.
Yeah, those are similar to the CD09?
Slightly different ratios, but the same diameter gear, same gear width. So from a strength perspective, they're the same. The ratio is slightly different. The first gear is a lot shorter in the truck transmission because it came in a truck. So if you want to go off-road or haul a load, you need a deeper first gear to get out of the hole. Yep. So that frankly is not super conducive to somebody who wants to go autocross racing with one of these, because the first gear is kind of short. Mm-hmm. But out on the road course, you're never in first gear, and the rest of the ratios are pretty closely spaced, and they work well in those applications. Or cruising on the street, they work fine.
Yeah. And that's what I'm mostly interested in. Yes, I want to try to do some autocrossing, but I really want to get out there and sort of compete against myself on a road course, from a time perspective. a pretty lofty dream. I feel like, because I just haven't gotten much closer, even though I have all these great parts.
We will make it happen eventually, Robbie.
I know. But that's what I'm so interested in, is just getting out on a road course and seeing how it all shakes out. That just seems like so much fun.
It's an interesting experience, especially in a truck. Ironically, I haven't actually been out on a road course in anything other than a truck, which I'm looking forward to this year because my truck's down right now. I have another car that I had built primarily as a street car, but we bought a set of wheels and tires for it for me to at least go out on track with it so I can have some fun this year. Unimportant, but it'll be interesting to get out on a road course in a car. But from a little bit back to the truck thing we were talking about earlier, the pro touring truck market on the domestic side is still, I'm not going to say it's in its infancy, but I think it's kind of like a teenager right now. It's still growing and finding roots. I really like the pro touring truck idea. I'm trying to be a little bit of a catalyst for pro touring trucks on the import side.
Yep.
It's one thing I love about your business and your channel, in the name United by Trucks.
Right.
I think we can all play nice together.
Totally. If we couldn't, you wouldn't be here.
Well, it's
this
funny.
is us playing nice. I mean, I think that I'm 100% trying to grow the community all the way around. I'm so rooted in classic trucks. But if that video showed anything, there are so many classic truck and car enthusiasts who are looking for any good way to spend their money wisely.
Absolutely.
I mean, it is just totally inherent in like what LOJ stands for, it seems. So I think that, we're both looking at this from hey, let's all play in the same sandbox and have some fun and try out all these products.
Yeah, I think it's great because, anything we develop on our side that can benefit, the classic muscle truck community is good. It gives you guys more options.
Yep.
And we've leveraged stuff that was developed on the domestic market side for, American vehicles in the builds we do as well, because it's still an LS in almost everything we build.
That's right.
I mean, we're doing Hemi kits now. We actually, the trailer that we came down in has a Hemi swap G35 in it that we're dropping it off at Cook's on the way home for them to make headers for that swap. But, actually, I'm really excited for you to see the Xterra that we brought down.
Yes, we'll be doing that tomorrow.
Yeah, Pro Touring Xterra, which that thing's wild. I think it's one of the coolest things we've ever built.
Quick rundown on it. What is it?
So it's a 2012 Xterra, 11 or 12 Xterra, and the Xterra, the Pathfinder, the Frontier basically share a frame architecture, different wheelbases, whatever, but very similar. So parts interchange between them. And we lowered it. We did what I would call, a lot of guys in the, I guess, domestic truck market would do what they call like a body drop, where they section the body to drop lower on the frame. That's really a lot more complicated on a modern vehicle than it is on a classic vehicle. So you're
doing that to bring the frame up.
Yes.
So that you don't have so much frame rail hanging down.
Exactly.
Yep.
So we did something different. We did what I call a chassis drop. We took all of the attachment points for the suspension and raised them on the frame 2 inches.
I see. Yeah.
So that raised the suspension on the frame, the entire frame and body drops lower. So we did that on the truck. We did an independent suspension conversion in the rear with the subframe, the same subframe that I run in my Frontier. It came factory in a Nissan Pathfinder, but then again, sectioned the frame to suck the subframe up higher so that we kept the roll center front and rear the way it should be. You don't want to mismatch that because it can make the balance handling wise wrong. It's got a big cam LS3 in it with the same adapter and transmission that you're going to be running in your OBS truck is in that Frontier, or in that Xterra. Like I said, independent suspension. It's got big brakes on it. Actually, we did custom 2-piece rotor hats with the rotor ring and calipers from a 370Z.
Oh, cool.
So they're like a 14-inch rotor. It's got a wrap on it. We did some custom aero on it, racing seats, harness bar, harnesses. It still has air conditioning, still has heat, all the stuff inside works. Has traction control, Motorsports ABS. Like it's going to be a fun track toy. I took it out at Pittsburgh at Pit Race the end of last year after we had basically as the final shakedown on it. And we exposed some, I don't want to call them issues, but, some shortcomings, some deficiencies that, we needed ABS in it. We realized that really you can't run a truck like that without ABS. not safely anyway. And so we put an ABS unit in it, and I think we had done a couple other things to address fuel starvation with the fuel cell we had put in it. Just a couple minor things, and it's set now, I believe. And we came down here. Actually, the owner of that truck lives in South Carolina, so we were delivering that truck to him this weekend. Also had to drop the other car at Cook's in North Carolina, so we're like,
you're on a swing.
Yeah, we're on a swing right now. It's kind of a round robin this weekend. But
well, we're glad to have you here in Georgia.
And the irony is that the Xterra I built for my best friend. So him and I met street racing when I was in college.
Wow.
I was, he had an Evo, I had an Evo. My girlfriend at the time had a second gen DSM. So we were street racing, not condoning street racing to anybody watching, but young and dumb.
Close course activities.
And he thought, he thought I was a jerk. I thought he was a jerk, whatever. One day we were out another weekend to go racing, and we go to the meetup spot, and he's there, but his Evo's not there. And I'm talking to him. Turns out he blew his clutch or his transmission in it. I don't remember which. And I offered to help him fix it. And that was when he realized maybe Steve's not a jerk.
Yeah.
And I remember laying in his garage in the middle of winter, freezing cold, dropping a transmission out of an Evo, which anybody's worked on an Evo, they're awful to work on. But we kind of became friends through that. And he was best man at my wedding, and, we vacation together, kids are friends, all that. So it's kind of cool how life happens.
Yeah.
And now
where was this? Was this in New Jersey?
It was in New Jersey, yeah. Okay. So he moved to South Carolina 4 years ago, I want to say at this point. I could be wrong, but 3-4 years, something like that.
Very cool.
It was COVID when we were moving him down here. So
wow. So that would have been almost 5 years ago.
4 or 5 years ago.
4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
You mentioned garage, and it just got me thinking, how and what are you operating this business out of? Because I think I know, but this is a really cool sort of connection point from a grassroots perspective that I think people can really grab a hold of. What's your setup for running LOJ from a shop perspective?
So the business is run out of my home, which is probably what you expected.
I've seen photos. I think it's awesome.
I mean, I have a 810 square foot 2-car garage that everything LOJ has built has been built in. And then I have another 800 square foot building that we put up that basically houses all the inventory for the online sales.
Yep.
There's some other creative storage stuff going on at home too. New Jersey is a expensive place to live, expensive place to buy property. We have talked about expanding operations, and it is in the 2 to 3 year window, I would say.
Yeah.
The LOJ is finally going to leave my house, which will be nice to
have its own space.
Yeah, have its own space. But, that's what it's been for years. Like I said, LOJ is very much a small business. We serve a niche community, and I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
We serve them well, I'd like to believe. We don't get very many complaints from customers. And when we do what we need to make it right. I'm not trying to get rich off of this. I still work a day job, even to this day.
Yep.
This is a side business for me. I'm proud that I employ somebody full time.
That's the thing that I admire about you the most. And I was actually talking to my wife about this the other night. And sorry to cut you off, but fine. I just want to put a fine point on this. You still have your day job. You started this business, but you have a full-time employee.
Yeah.
You weren't the first person to go full-time. You made sure that you were hiring somebody that can help you achieve your goals while you still kept the security you need, and for whatever reasons those are. But I think that's super admirable.
And it's funny that stemmed out of a book I read. For any of listeners that followers you might have that are business people or looking to it, there's a book called Who Not How. And I read that book, and it was very formative in my whole view of the business, because it talks about not identifying, like, there's lots of things we need to do every day as being a business owner. And instead of looking at how to get those things done, look at who you need to do those things. Yeah. It's a perspective shift.
Sure.
And Blaine has been a blessing from God. He literally does the things in the business that need to be done, but aren't necessarily the best use of my time to do as the owner.
Sure.
I should be designing new products and developing new things and growing the business and doing things like you and I are doing right now, and go and promote the business and network and meet people. And it's enabled the business to do more in the last 2 years than it has in its entire life. One of the things I wanted to mention too, I'm in the process right now of releasing a whole new line of transmission adapters that I think some of your listeners might be very interested in.
Yeah, let's hear it.
have you ever heard of the 8 HP or the ZF8 transmission?
I have.
It's
Yep.
an 8-speed auto.
Yep.
So it's a very popular transmission in Mopar communities. They came behind Hemis and Hellcats, Ram pickup trucks. They also came in a bunch of different BMWs, Jaguars, Alfa Romeos, you name it. It's a 8-speed automatic made by ZF Transmissions in Germany, and it's been used in a plethora of different vehicles. While there's companies that make standalone transmission controllers for that transmission, it is an extremely robust, great gear spread. You can do things with it like trans brake, launch control. You can even install a clutch pedal in a car that has an automatic and clutch kick if you're drifting with one of these transmissions. And we've now released adapters for that transmission to LS, LT. Don't need an adapter for Hemi because it bolts to it.
Yeah.
But Godzilla, Coyote, and some Nissan motors. And I'm very proud of that transmission because I think it's going to be a great option for guys that want a blend of motorsports, but also maybe they don't know how to drive stick. Maybe they have a physical reason they can't drive stick. Maybe, from just a pure motorsports, we can do paddle shifters with them. They're
that's cool.
It's just a cool another option. A lot of guys in the motorsports world right now are kind of calling that transmission, it's like the LS of transmissions. It's like the transmission people are going to want to put behind anything or in anything because it's so strong, user-friendly, and there's so many of them out there for inexpensive prices. They make different versions. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the thing to look up for guys at home would be the 8 HP.
Either the 8 HP or ZF8.
Okay.
Both names are kind of used interchangeably. I use both in the product descriptions on our website to try to capture the Google searches, but most of the companies that manufacture adapters for them right now are overseas. It's starting to catch on in the States, so I'm pretty proud of what we've been able to release. I'm working on 6 more adapters right now for different applications because it's not just the engine. If the transmission came out of a Dodge, it's got a different bolt pattern than if it came out of a Jaguar, than if it came out of a BMW. So there's a lot of variables there.
Sure.
And there's different torque ratings. If anybody's looking it up, it's the 8 HP. It might be an 8 HP 45, an 8 HP 70, an 8 HP 90. That number relates to what ZF built that version to hold torque-wise.
Okay.
So if an 8 HP 45 is 450 Newton meters of torque, I'm not doing the conversion in my head right now.
I couldn't.
Yeah. 70 would be 700 Newton meters. 90 would be 900. You can do the math to convert that.
Okay.
But this 8 HP 90s came in like Hellcats, big power vehicles.
Yeah.
70s came in Chargers, Ram pickup trucks. 45s came in like the V6 Chargers. So you can imagine, depending what you're building, you pick the one that holds the power you need. But like an 8 HP 45, we bought one for $200. So,
wow.
You got to buy the adapter, but if the transmissions are that cheap and plentiful.
Which is the same concept around the EA200.
Exactly. So
if you can get a good used transmission for a lesser cost, you have good adapters, you have the right setup to go in it, you're going to come well under a T56,
yep.
All in. And I think that's our T56 Magnum. And I think that's really I think that's really where LOJ is shining and standing out in my mind. I think that's such a cool thing, around innovation.
And you had mentioned before about how we're trying to serve, more than just the Nissan LS swap community.
Yeah.
And that's one of those ways, because I think guys, again, building classic pro touring trucks, muscle cars, whatever, maybe they want to put one of these 8-speed automatics in their car. And I don't want to quote the companies that make the transmission controllers, but I'm pretty sure you can even put one of them behind like a carbureted small block if you wanted.
Wow.
You got to feed a throttle position signal to it somehow, whatever, but like it doesn't need to have an engine, a fuel injected engine to work.
Yeah.
So again, it's more options for more guys to do more cool things with cars, which is what I'm about. So, whatever you can build.
I love it. Did you see my actual racing helmet over there?
That's
the one. So that's the one I will wear that goes with the OBS whenever I do, stop pretending to be a racer and actually race something.
It's not all about racing, Robbie.
I know, but that's really what I'm trying to do. That's how we got connected on this particular project, and so I think about it all the time. So it's just one of those things where I feel like I'm posing until I put that helmet on and go. Well, Stephen, thank you for being here. This has
Yeah.
been awesome. I really do feel like we could talk forever.
Absolutely.
But we hit on a lot of the things that I think we didn't get to talk about in the video, and so I think this is a really nice way to bring some more information to my viewers.
Sure.
But there were a couple of questions that were asked on the video and have been asked just of me since then that I wanted to run by you and see if you can just give some quick, succinct answers to. I think that it would really be helpful to some folks who are considering doing this EA 200 swap.
Sure, absolutely.
In their truck or car. So just to put a fine point on the year ranges, what are those year ranges for the Frontier that you're looking for the EA 200 transmission out of?
Essentially 2005 and newer. I don't remember the exact year that they stopped offering the manual as an option.
I think it was 21.
16?
16 says Blaine.
Blaine says. So, 15.
So a good 10-year run.
A good 10-year run. You want a rear-wheel drive manual transmission. The Frontiers came both 4-cylinder and V6. It's the V6 transmission we're talking about, not the 4-cylinder. Good luck finding a 4-cylinder manual trans anyway. They're like rare as hen's teeth because they did not make many of them at all. But if you stumble across one, it's a 5-speed and it's the wrong trans. You want the 6-speed out of the V6.
Love it.
It was also in Xteras, and yes, they made 2-wheel drive Xteras that were manual transmission.
My friend had one growing up.
Yep. So same thing, Xterra 2005 and newer. I think Xteras stopped being produced in 13 or 14, something like that. But
so within
whatever.
that 05 to 15 window.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I think we already answered this, but just to put a fine point on it, your EA 200 adapter, it'll work for LS and LTs.
Yep.
And then we talked about the other engine ranges that it'll work for as well.
Yep.
This is a question I actually had. What transmission crossmember and mount can we use in Chevy trucks?
Most likely, something that would work on a T56 will also work. So the bolt pattern on the bottom of the transmission, any one of those Chevy energy suspension transmission mounts will bolt to it. The bolt spacing will work with an off-the-shelf energy suspension mount.
And so then we can just use a regular tubular crossmember that we're using when we change transmissions anyway.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, you might have to slide it forward and backward for
the
correct positioning. And I can't guarantee you that height-wise, you might not need a spacer to get your driveline angle correct.
Yep.
I don't know that math off the top of my head. And
that's all normal part of the process. But it's good to know that the mount itself,
the rubber bushing for a Chevy transmission will bolt to the Nissan transmission.
Okay, very cool. There was a lot of talk on the video, especially in the comment section, about the 4x4 version of this transmission. I think it's pretty clear that it cannot be used, or you don't make an adapter that would work in that scenario. But can you just kind of give us, and I'm speaking for you, so can you just kind of give us your thoughts around the 4x4 trans and why you can't use it in this context?
So the 4x4 transmission, the output shaft is the same spline as the 2-wheel drive transmission. So a yoke would technically slip onto it. The problem is the actual extension housing, the case on the back of the trans, is not designed to accept a slip yoke. It's designed to have a transfer case bolt to it.
Yep.
So I've looked at it to try to come up with some kind of solution to make that work, and it's not in the cards.
Yeah.
Could I make something? Sure, but then you're adding so much cost that
it may not make it feasible.
Yeah. By the time you buy the adapter, the transmission, and the kit to make the 4x4 version work, just go buy a T56. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Just because you can make something doesn't mean you should make something.
Yeah.
But
love that candor. Thank you. You answered that. My follow-up there. Oh, this is a good question. How big is the EA 200 transmission in comparison to like a 4L80, like size-wise, case-wise? Is it, it seems to be a fairly large transmission, but
I would say it's shorter overall lengthwise than a 4L80. The bell housing is probably a little bigger than a 4L80, but the actual body of the transmission is probably about the same size as a 4L80.
So it should take up roughly the same real estate as a 4L80.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what most automatic guys who are doing a lot of classic or doing a lot of LS swaps are thinking 4L80 because 4L60's got such a bad rap. But that's what most people are comparing,
that
in the
bad rap is well deserved.
I think it is too. And then we already answered the question about what if it'll work behind a Gen 1 small block, and the answer is yes. If it's internally balanced.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And it would, like I said, it would be special order to build a flywheel for it. We have done it before. We can continue to do it. But because it's special order, there's like a 2 to 3 week lead time.
Sure.
So, I know everybody's getting used to the Amazon world where you can click buy and I get shipping notification in 10 minutes and it's on my porch that day or the next day.
Not in the custom world.
Not in the custom world, but we can do it. Absolutely.
Awesome.
So.
Well, is there anything else you want to tell our audience that we didn't cover today?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, but like you said, Robbie, we could talk for hours.
We could.
I could talk about all sorts of stuff.
Well, hit everybody really quickly with your website and your socials for LOJ.
Sure.
And yeah.
So you'll find LOJ at LOJkits.com or LOJconversions.com. Either will get you there. LOJ Kits is just easier to say and type. It's less letters. LOJ Conversions or at LOJ Conversions for Instagram or Facebook. And for myself and the Frontier, at That Crazy Frontier on Instagram. I don't have a Facebook for the truck. I have a personal Facebook. If you want to follow me, you're not going to see much because I don't post anything.
Yeah, we'll just leave it to Instagram and the website.
Instagram.
I got to say, though, I mentioned it when we were talking about the Instagram profile, but even if you're just into anything cool, automotive and cool, go follow That Crazy Frontier. It is just awesome. And you have some great photography on there. I don't know who all are taking those photos, but there's some really great photos of you in action in this truck that I think is just really just worth a follow anyway.
Thanks.
So I really appreciate you being here, Stephen.
You had one more question.
I did?
And you've forgotten it already.
What was it? Oh, yeah. Yes. I did have one more question. This is why we have people in the room. What does LOJ stand for?
So LOJ stands for Lion of Judah.
That's what I thought.
So Lion of Judah is my reference to Jesus Christ. He's my Lord and Savior. And the Rev 5:5 in the LOJ crest is Revelations 5:5, which is the only verse in the Bible that refers to Jesus as the Lion of Judah.
Love it. Well, thank you for being here today, Stephen.
You're very
welcome. I really
welcome.
Appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure.
Yep.
Thanks.
See you.